U.S. Gulf Coast is bracing for not one but two dangerous storms. Marco was just downgraded from a hurricane to a tropical storm as it inches towards the Gulf Coast. Laura expected to reach hurricane strength as it makes landfall later this week. I'll show you the scene inside the eye of Laura as it ripped through the Caribbean, killing 9 people and leaving nearly 500,000 people in the Dominican Republic without power. Storm watches and warnings stretch from Florida to Texas at the moment, and the state of Louisiana has begun mandatory evacuations in some areas. The governor telling people to be prepared for the long haul.
These storms are not to be taken lightly, especially because there are 2 of them. The second storm comes in so close that there may not be much of a window when we can fly search and rescue helicopters, when we can get out with high water vehicles.
And meteorologist Padram Javaheri is here to tell us more. What are you seeing ahead in the next few days?
Yeah, Michael, it's going to be a tough go across the Gulf of Mexico. As you noted here, really incredible setup when it comes to not one but 2 tropical systems. In fact, going back to 1851, when records began, only one storm, the most recent storm, making 2 appearances, 2 storms at the same time in the Gulf of Mexico, would be back in June of 1959. And again, no hurricanes have simultaneously been in the Gulf of Mexico. So again, this is something we're watching very carefully. As you noted, Marco now a tropical storm. Laura on the heels of this, coming in also as a tropical storm. We do expect some changes, though, within this forecast. And show you what's happening with Marco. You'll notice some of the cloud fields kind of pushing off towards the north and east of the center of the storm. That's wind shear or winds above it trying to shred it apart. And that is certainly causing it to weaken within the next couple of days. We think by Monday night, the skirts off the southern coast there of Louisiana. By Tuesday, possibly kind of paralleling the coast of western Louisiana into eastern Texas and weakens across that region, maybe even just rains itself out before it ever makes landfall in the region. But with the water already in motion across this area, the storm surge threat of as much as 6 feet is certainly a possibility. Plaquemines Parish, Grand Isle, some of these areas, mandatory evacuations in place across this region. And again, notice the contours of reds and oranges, yellows. These are indicative of wind shear as the system approaches. But notice, not much of it left once the system pushes ashore in the next couple of days. That's what sets the stage here for Laura, which has the potential to be a far more significant player here. You'll notice it'll skirt just south of Cuba within the next 24 hours, possibly to the Gulf of Mexico. And at that point, this could be a much stronger feature, Category 1, possibly up to a strong Category 2. And the National Hurricane Center tells us this is one of those storms that you cannot let your guard off of because the ingredients are in place for rapid intensification, could even be a major hurricane. And then notice this, offshore, upwards of 600 oil platforms off the coast of Louisiana and Texas, about 100 of which have been already evacuated, but this is an area of concern with the system moving directly over this region and kind of overlaying one another here with Marco and also Laura. Marco on the eastern side, just south of New Orleans, that's where the wettest weather is. Back on the western side, around Lake Charles, on into Houston, that is where the forecast track right now takes Laura as potentially a strong Category 2, maybe even a Category 3 by Wednesday afternoon. So again, just a couple of days removed from one another. And we've not seen this since 1959, of seeing 2 storms in the Gulf at the same time, Michael.
Crazy few days ahead. Padram Javaheri, thanks so much. We'll check in with you next hour. Now, thousands of firefighters, meanwhile, some working around the clock, are battling hundreds of wildfires across the state of California with no end in sight. Many of these fires started by lightning. The fires scorching more than 1 million acres of land, and still they've had to call in reinforcements just to keep up. CNN's Paul Verkaman is in Calistoga, California, with more.
Michael, there's smoke in the air and tension in the air. That's because they know that there's a strong possibility of these lightning strikes, a red flag warning all over Northern California, Central California. Here's the command post where they're helping to dispatch the 14,000 firefighters now on the lines in California. And speaking of those lines, this gives you what they're up against. This is the LNU complex. The black line means they've got containment either by digging it with bulldozers or shovels or backfiring. The red, that's where there's no containment whatsoever on these monster fires. Firefighters have been pouring in from other states, including Oregon, and we spoke with one of those firefighters who's out on the line.
This is historic. I mean, something that we've seen in the past, but not to this magnitude. Our resources are stretched thin, and what we're worried about is the system coming in, causing the same havoc throughout the state, and trying to get resources to protect the citizens of California.
This is Calistoga, California. They've had their share of trouble with fire over the past half decade. You can look over here, and one of the firefighters advising a resident as to what's going on here with evacuations, the potential for more blazes, and people here showing appreciation. A woman drove up and heard that firefighters needed pillows, or at least were trying to buy some pillows, and so she handed them 12 to 14 pillows.
We love them. God bless them. We're nothing without them. And thank God they're here. And they just put out so much. Look how hot it is, how the air is horrible. They're out there fighting these things for us, and the least thing I can do is bring some pillows. I wish I could do more.
So back here on the ground, this sense of anticipation. What will this weather bring them? Will it be more of these lightning strikes that caused so much trouble before? They're just crossing their fingers and hoping they get through the next 24 to 48 hours. Back to you now, Michael.
Paul Vercammon, I thank you for that. We're going to take a quick break when we come back here on CNN Newsroom. After